Whatever about the dance, I'm just like I said. And when I say hold yourself, I want all of you get ready to stop. When I say stop, don't move. And when I say get it, I want all of y'all to go. Hold it now. Boogie woogie.
And there we are.
Oh, am I supposed to stop dancing?
You're supposed to stop dancing now.
Well, I don't feel like it. All right.
Well, how about you do the intro while you're dancing?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover RPG. It's a little talking show, not quite a talk show yet, where me and Logan, I'm Angela. We'll do more introductions, but where we chat a bit about RPGs and gaming and kind of whatever we feel like talking about, and with the hopes of eventually turning some of our discussions into more structured short videos that we can put up on our YouTube channel for you guys. But we figured we like talking, we like having discussions about this stuff anyway, so why not just stream the brainstorm sessions anyway, just so you guys can see what stuff doesn't make it into the videos.
Basically, we talked so much about this stuff outside, we decided we wanted to turn it into a tax write-off. So that's really what it was.
There you go. Turn your friendship into a tax write-off. That's the dream.
Turn your friendship into a tax write-off. That is the dream. That's my dream. I want to write off all my friends. Wait, that's not
I won't tell them if you... Oh, wait, we're streaming.
Shit.
That doesn't quite work anymore. No, Logan, you can't bitch about people when we're you know, putting it on the internet.
Well,
not that stopped you in the past.
I'm not gonna have much to say, I don't think. 90% of our conversations. What's woo! Yay, thank you for the bits, Fennec.
Ooh, Fennec. So with our fancy layout you might see on our stream, I think it's over here.
Fancy.
You might see a few topics and stuff, and that is our session plan. We have talked about some of the stuff we would like to eventually turn into videos, and we'll be going down the list, trying to hit as many of them as we can per episode, though if we don't get to stuff on the list near the bottom, it's just going to get bumped up to a topic for our session plan for a later episode. So yeah. So
today's episode we'll be talking about these things right here. Lovely things. But in the future we'll have a specific... Where did you go?
I accidentally hit my space bar. It's fine.
You know what? That doesn't screw anything up anymore. So what I need to do when that happens, I need to put something behind you for the audience as a little Easter egg. And I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Oh, no.
I'm going to find out. Yes, so we're going to do that. I just realized I can do that now. All right. So we're going to talk about these topics today. And because we have come up with a very bare bones idea of these silly topics and things. We have a bunch more that we'll be talking about as well in future episodes. But we want to kind of just flesh these out today and show you our process about how we talk about things and the tangents we go on. And the strange things that make us laugh, I'm sure. We'll just talk about them and go on. So, Angela, what's the point of all this?
Well, I did a really, really mediocre job of doing that at the beginning. But we had talked about wanting to do short videos on YouTube that were about DMing or role-playing and storytelling, or how to work with your group and all sorts of stuff, whether it was mechanics or storytelling and thematic stuff, or just group dynamics outside of the characters. And we really like the idea of hanging out, and we hang out on Wednesday afternoons anyway to sort of shoot the shit and talk about this kind of stuff. And we figured, why not just share that with people? Because, you know, we won't just be talking to each other for however many hours on Wednesday afternoons. Right. We'll have people. And and we want to brainstorm together and try to see if getting audience participation might help us make something really neat.
Now, Angela, there are times when you and I are working together that we don't talk for like 20 minutes at a time.
Correct.
I don't think that's going to be a good stream.
No.
We're
going to fix that. That's why we have talking points.
Talking mouths.
I would like to start with your example of things that make us laugh. I'd like to share something with you today.
Oh, yes. You told me that there was going to be a sharing moment.
Yes.
A show and tell.
My puppy is sleeping behind me, so if he starts snoring or boofing in his sleep, I'm going to turn the mic on. But he had a rough day today. I took him to the groomer and then decided not to take him to the groomer because it seemed too stressful for him. So I felt super bad and I bought him a toy because I'm a ridiculous dog mom. And I bought him this hedgehog. The best part, right? Well, the best part of it is the noise it makes because it's not a normal squeaky. It makes a terrible cow noise.
What is wrong with that? Why did they put a cow noise into a hedgehog?
I don't know.
And
but
a dust mop.
But I can make it laugh at him.
No, seriously.
Anyway, so I was very...
Someone took you just woke your dog up. Someone took a dust mop cover and sewed the ends up and stuffed it and then put a face on it. Why would they do that?
Thank
my
you.
Dusters, it looked just like that.
Thank you, Secondhand Samurai. Yes, this is a wrong hog.
A wrong hog. Yes,
I approve. And he very much wants it, so I'm just going to let him have it. Here you go. Okay.
In future episodes, we may or may not have puppy cams going because we have two adorable puppies that we want to make sure that we share with the world, and we don't get to do enough of that during our stream.
And I have a extra webcam, so it's just going to be doggy level, and I'll turn it on when he does something cute, which is always. So always. So that is my show and tell for the day. I'll try to do show and tells just to, get us into a talking at a camera mood. Not that we don't do that how many days a week.
So we're going to do a lot of fun things on the show. We have a lot of just weird, crazy ideas. We've got some games we're going to play, and we've got a lot of topics we're going to talk about. Some serious, some very much not. We're going to do reviews of different products, different home brews, and talk about house rules that we've used or we've seen that we like. And then we'll just pick one or two every week, and we'll just kind of rotate through different topics. And whatever we get to, we get to. It's probably be somewhere between an hour and 2 hour stream whenever we get tired of each other, which is never, of course. Well, that's not true. There's been a couple times. She's gotten tired of me. I don't ever get tired of her. And that's understandable. So, but yeah, it's kind of whenever we think we're feeling kind of done with it, I guess. But I think we're going to shoot for 2 hours every week. I think we can.
Sounds right.
So it'll be noon to 2. You need to come and go. Join us anytime, and we'll do a lot of audience interaction, and we want to take questions from the audience at the end or even in the middle. If we think that's a really good question, we'll just grab it and go. You have to forgive us because we will be moderating not only our Twitch channel, but we're also now on YouTube at YouTube/8724365AB9248. No. I don't know. We'll have to put a link somewhere because we don't have enough subscribers to have a vanity name yet on the YouTube channel. So
that's the goal. That's our first goal: is get a vanity URL so that we can easily.
We need 100 subscribers on our YouTube, but we now are streaming to YouTube, and so is the entire Nerdsmith network. Speaking of Nerdsmith, that's our awesome network that we're on. You probably know that because this is the Nerdsmith channel. They are hosting and producing for us. We run the Nerdsmith network. We own it. So, but we talk about it like it's a separate entity because that's how you're supposed to do it. But they're running everything and producing everything for us as we move on. And this is also a test to see how Nerdsmith would produce other shows, like outside shows that might come on the network and want to start a stream, how we could produce them for them and run the stream, but they could have their own YouTube channel and then stream to both YouTube and Twitch. And then so we'll have the Twitch video, and they don't have to worry about creating a channel. They'll have a built-in audience if they fit in with our feel and stuff like that. So I think it's a really neat idea. And if they ever want to break away, then that's fine. They can go start their own Twitch channel. That'd be great. But,
you and me, Logan, we'll just Thelma and Louise it.
We'll Thelma and Louise it right off. Wait, what? What? Don't they drive off a cliff or something?
It's a metaphor for freedom.
Oh, a metaphor for freedom. I was thinking, I don't know. There's a lot of metaphors for freedom out there. Eagles.
Jumping into the
Sam
Grand
the Eagle.
Canyon's not the most accessible.
Not really. Was it the Grand Canyon? I had no idea. I've never
Yep,
seen
it was a Grand
so
Canyon.
I know everything about it, but I've never seen it. We'll talk about movies like that.
Yeah. We will, especially since I have a topic I want to talk about eventually.
Eventually.
About movies. It's not on there.
It's not on there. Why the hell isn't it on there?
Because I have, like, a guest I hope will eventually be on the show that we can talk about it with them. Oh, there's another thing. We eventually hope to have guests.
They'll be down in the bottom corner over here in a little tiny screen, I'm sure.
Oh, also, it is entirely up to you if you would like to continue having music during the stream.
Oh,
but
shit.
Our theme song played, and then we went into eerie silence.
What we might do on this channel, though, just to have a little bit of more fun, is we might put one of those not a bot, it's an extension that allows you to choose music through one of those companies where it's all royalty free and stuff. That might be kind of fun to do, to have it here instead of us just playing our mix from our other stream, Countless Heroes.
But it can just be the sound of Nerdsmith. You know, it'll be like one of those.
Nerdsmith. You know what the sounds of Nerdsmith are? Ramen noodles and crying. That's pretty much the sounds of Nerdsmith.
And dice too close to the microphone.
And lots of dice dice right under the microphone and typing under the microphone. That is everything.
That's a big one. Typing without realize you're typing.
Hey audience, are we coming through loud and clear? Are we okay? We didn't do a sound check and I completely forgot because we had only a million other things to do.
I think I'm a little louder than you, but that's not unnormal.
I think I'm a clone now. All right. Sounding good. All right. Good. If I need to be louder or whatever, let me know and we'll go ahead and adjust that. So.
Actually, if that's helpful, I can just turn myself down a little bit and then we'll be about even.
Well, now nobody will hear us. That's great.
Oh, no.
What? Yeah, thanks, Chad. I never just ignore.
He needs the old-timey horn. What'd you say?
What's that again, Sonny? I don't know.
No, I am not sanctioning that. just because she's just in chat. By the way, Tessa is in chat right now. So yeah, she's not okay with this. We will lose one of our precious few viewers if you do that sound.
Pappy will make a comeback.
Not on this show.
Not on this. You know what? I run a lot of shows.
You'll get. You know what? Pappy can have his own show, and it'll have negative viewers.
The Pappy Hour.
It'll just be called Pappy Hour.
It'll just be me. You know what? I think I did 20 minutes of that with
some very intense ASMR people.
Gabby last night. Gabby, I discovered 600 new Pokemon that I didn't know existed. And evidently, I'm old. In case you didn't know.
No, there's too many. There's too many of them. Could you imagine how long the song would be on the...
I was like, they're like, oh, they're evolving. I'm like, what, are they mating and just creating new ones? What? And of course, Kyle and Gabby had to show me them all. Logan. And so I started going through the list, and it was ridiculous.
Poke life finds a way.
Oh my god.
You're welcome.
Speaking of Poke Life Finds a Way, have you seen the trailer for Detective Pikachu?
Yes, I have.
Oh my god.
Okay,
that's what started our whole
I am absolutely flabbergasted that's the first like mainstream live action Pokemon movie made in the States.
They couldn't do anything. Every other plot that they've ever had is basically chicken fighting. It's cockfighting. You can't, and that's what the whole show is. How has this become a thing? I mean, it's virtual, and okay, fine. We have virtual games about murdering people and assassinating and all sorts of things. So fine, go have your virtual fun. But let's call it what it is. That's what it is. But,
okay, so turning it into a meta detective comedy
with supernatural, understand, talk with animals. It's a D&D meta movie.
Sure.
Everything comes back to D&D. And that's the slogan of the show.
Everything comes back to RPGs. How about that?
Everything comes back to Vor.
No, it doesn't.
Somebody said the other night in game there was something going on. I think it was maybe it was last night. I had the damn one of our channels was up, and this is a streaming tip. If you have a screen that goes live and it's a browser window to your audience, don't open something else in that browser, especially if it reveals something you're going to do later, such as roaring animal noises. And I think somebody said everything goes back to roar, and I got so mad. I was so mad. It was ridiculous.
I still have those approximately square background images with all of our new catchphrases.
Oh, Jesus.
Hey,
yes,
in this game we can play with them more.
And responsibly. I've been very impressed that people have not gone crazy with those. We do, during our live stream, we do funny little, well, we've evidently started to do funny little pop-ups over the people's faces. Something we said we never wanted to do. But
I'm glad I'm glad that power is being used responsibly. No, I'm not currently using SparkoCamp, so no. But next time I'll start figuring it out. We're gonna be like the audio visual, or it'll just be the visual version of like Shock Jocks, where they go, bah, 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 but we'll have like some sort of weird screen thing.
Yes.
Cutaway.
All right. Should we move on?
Sure, we can move on. So you now know the point of this.
Watch the screen. It does a fancy thing.
It does a fancy thing. You got the fancy thing to work.
Sort of. It's a lot of work on my end, but it did kind of work.
Oh, look great.
All right. Dividing by 0. And we destroy the world.
Yes. All right. So this is going to be a really sort of starter topic that a lot of people deal with when talking about DMing or starting a D&D game. So we wanted to sort of, and we've done a couple of conventions now, panels about sort of things that involve session 0. So why not start compiling all of those into core topics that we can bring up or talk about?
So the goal of a lot of this, the original concept is this was going to be our brainstorming sessions for doing little mini videos. I mean, you can go online and see Matt Colville do videos about Session 0. There's 1,000 Session 0 videos out there. Every single one I've watched has had a great piece of information that I didn't think about before. But they're all extremely long. They are all 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 minutes, whatever. Especially Matt Colville, who, of course, is notorious for saying it's going to be a short video and then going for 40 minutes. So Matt Colville does something really nice. Is he gets to the point really early and then kind of expands upon it. What we want to do is just get to the point and stop. So we're looking at doing little mini videos of us taking the information that we work on here and outside of here, and then putting them into little snippets and answering questions, and not giving you all the reasons why. Just being like, here's what we came up with. This is how we solved this problem, and we can talk about here why it works and how it works and all the expanding upon it. But for these little short videos, we just wanted to be like, I want to know what the X card is. Boom, we can just go and do that. Oh, I want to know why, do I need to talk about gender issues with my group, even though none of us are LGBT? It's when you can snap on all of those little moments and just make little important tidbits without you having to watch a 20, 30-minute video. Because people like me have a short attention span. I can't make it through a Matt Colville video. I skip around and just try to grab as much as I can. Otherwise, I have him up on the screen while I'm doing something else, and then I miss half of what he's saying anyway. So, it's tough just because I have a hard time just sitting there and watching. So I want to do something for people like me. So
and happy to facilitate that.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about Session 0s. We're going to talk about, what's important in a Session 0. We're going to talk about what a Session 0 is. And so, if anybody doesn't know, and I'd be shocked, but I'm sure it happens now, a Session 0 is a session you have before you start a campaign. You get your players together, hopefully, and all in the same place, and you talk about the expectations of the campaign. Something I'm learning more and more as I go on in my career. By the way, we didn't do introductions, really. But something I'm learning more and more as I go on in my career is that the communication with your players is vitally important, and it can make a much, much, much better game overall. Every time I don't communicate with my players in some way, I always regret it. And I always go back. Why don't we do a quick introductions though, and talk about our experience in gaming and our experience in life? Because I forgot we should do that.
Okay. My name is Angela McCain. I am a role player, and I've only dipped my toes into DMing a little bit, but I am very passionate about storytelling. I am a writer of fiction, so I very much enjoy the narrative aspects of DMing, and am slowly trying to learn the mechanics of it so that I can run games and one-shots myself. But I've been probably playing role-playing games in some form or another since middle school, probably.
So at least 5 years. Got it.
Yes.
And I am Logan Bryce. I am right now working at a law office as an office manager, and I also own a sign company. I've done graphic design for the last 12 years, but my true passion is and has always been the game industry. Because when I was in high school, I was very much an outlier to in the nth degree, and I did not have a place to fit in. And role playing games, we'll talk more about that probably another time, but role playing games kind of filled the hole that was inside of me. And because of that, I met some of my absolute best friends, my future ex-wife, and a lot of amazing things happen. So I've been DMing for over 20 years now, I think. How old am I? Yeah, it's been 22 years since I started 23 years since I started DMing, and about 23 years and 2 months since I started playing. I started with White Wolf and World of Darkness, which was a more roleplay heavy system. And then got into Dungeons and Dragons a few years later, and did a lot of chat role plays and live action role plays in between there. There was a point when I had probably spent, I would say easily the first 5 or 6 years I was role playing, I was spending 1,000 hours a year role playing, easy. It was for 2 or 3 nights a week, sometimes more. And then we got to the point in my 20s, early 20s, when we were role playing every single night. We even had a lot of fun. Yes, I've been married once before. Future ex-wife. I apologize about that. My high school sweetheart was my first wife. We were engaged for 8 years and married for 6 months.
Fennec was going to fight you on Tessa's behalf based on that.
No. Tessa's a keeper forever. I'm never getting rid of Tessa. I told her she'll have to pry me out of the cold dead hands. Right? Is that right? Pry herself out of my cold dead hands. There you go. We used to spend a lot of time at coffee shops, Lions coffee shops for your West Coasters, and Denny's, and we've been kicked out of a few. Yeah, it's happened. And but we found our home at one Lions over here in Vacaville, California. If you know what Vacaville, and we spent 36 hours straight there one day. 1.5 days, I guess. We were very good to the waitresses. We made a lot of money at the time, and we had no other expenses because we all lived at home. And so we spent a lot of money there. They were very happy with us. They loved having us there because that place was dying. We didn't know it at the time. And we got to meet a lot of interesting people. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, we spent 36 hours at a coffee shop one time gaming. So it was about that time when I met Aubrey and had been doing this, one of my best friends, who I'm hoping to start a podcast with very soon here. And a couple of years later, we decided we were going to open a game store together. So we did the smart thing. We wanted to open a game store, so we bought 15,000 comic books. Not sure why. We did not understand what we were buying. We got kind of screwed on the deal, and we lived together and then separately with 15,000 comic books for 8 years, and which we sold for about 1/5 the price we bought them for. So great investment, 15,000 comic books, especially when they've been cherry picked and the dealer sheets you get are not the same as what was in the boxes. It was not fun. Anyways, so we opened a game store in 2005. I purchased a game store that existed here in Vacaville, and I ran it for a couple of years. I did not run it extremely well, coupled with the economy. Unfortunately, it ended up closing. It was probably for the best. I did not know how to manage people very well at the time, and it became kind of a toxic area. You know, well, it was very toxic, very military when I went in. I'm not saying military is toxic, but there are a lot of very alpha male people who want to be in the military but couldn't cut it type. You know, I'm a military guy because I play airsoft, and they were very aggressive, and it was tough to deal with. But anyway, so I'm glad it closed. I'm glad I got the experience, but I learned a lot about the industry, and I wanted to kind of to continue to do that. I lost after that closed. I kind of lost my drive for a while until I met Tessa, and then Tessa gave me all of my hope and dreams back.
Aww.
And here we are. So anyway, so that's that. I apologize for the super long introduction, but that's a little tidbit into my experience in my life. So 22 plus years of experience DMing and gaming and being in the game industry and dealing with people in the back end. I've gone to Gamma trade show for 7 years in a row or something. So I got to learn all the back end stuff, and it's a very interesting industry. I can see it from every perspective because I've worked on developing my own games. I've owned a game store. I've been a player and a purchaser. I literally can see it from all sides. And it is a delicate system that, unfortunately, in this day and age, is in a little bit of peril. But we'll see where that goes. So yeah, that was that. Sorry.
Don't apologize. I'll be peppering in things about me as we go.
Yeah. There's a lot more to me than there is to me.
Because I don't have the skyscraper elevator pitch of my life that you do.
Wait. Do we have the same rule here in this stream that we have in our other streams?
What? We probably not a lot of same rules.
I don't know what we would do.
But no, don't worry about it.
Good. Thank God.
Why? What did I do?
No, you didn't. I did.
Oh. Okay.
I just realized.
No, this is a safe place.
This is our safe place. Awesome.
Yes.
I made a producer's reference, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to not make another producer's reference.
No, that's okay. No, I declare this a safe space to make jokes because we need to. You can't confine the mind while you're trying to brainstorm, Logan. Who knows what'll come out? I don't know.
Very true.
Alrighty. So.
Do you have anything else to say about dividing by zero?
Well, I think that and I'm making notes. At some point, we might want to talk about whether we want to share our Google Drive doc or something after the episode. That can be a thing. It's like you can see some of our notes as we were writing our video. Something like that.
Very soon, sometime in the next couple of weeks, have a page on Nerdsmith, and I'm sure we'll create some PDFs to share on there about some of the things we're talking about. Cool. Explaining things in our way, directing people to resources and things. I think it's going to be a very different type of page than the other Nerdsmith pages right now, because we want to really encapsulate the idea of directing people towards all these things we talk about.
True. All right. Well, so far in my notes, I talked about the idea that we want to, when you're doing a session zero, or the intent of a session zero is to set expectations with the DM between the DM and the players, and whether that's just the style of game that you want to run, what everybody wants to get out of it, versus what they don't want to get out of it. So that's where lines and veils sort of come into play.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very big into the idea of social contracts. Not everyone really understands what a social contract is, but social contract is an agreement between you and society. And society can be a small group of society or a large group of society. A small group of society is every time you get into a car, you have a social contract to be a safe driver. We don't all agree on what exactly that means, but in general, the masses are safe in driving their cars. You stop at stop signs, you go at green lights, you right turn on red in some states, but not others. So the social contract is different here and there. And yes, these are rules and laws as well, but social contracts dictate that even though you may want to break the law or you don't care about it, you still do it because you don't want to harm other people or people around you. It's the same thing at the gaming table. You're creating a social contract. You're sitting down and saying, this is what this place is going to be like. And if all your social contract is based on is the words Dungeons and Dragons, everybody is going to interpret that social contract differently. So what you need to do is sit down and get on the same page about the most important things. One, what is this game going to look like? What's it going to be like? Because there's a huge difference between Countless Heroes and, say, Shenanigans. Countless Heroes is a super long-term drama with a lot of role play and a lot of getting to know the characters and a lot of character development, and not a huge amount of combat. There's other types of games that are going to have a ton of combat, and that's all they're going to be. There are people out there that don't want to role play at all. They would just rather roll the dice and move on. That's okay. There's no wrong way to play D&D as long as you're respectful and everyone has fun. But the question is, if the DM wants to do a dungeon crawl where nobody talks and everybody just rolls their dice, like, oh, I want to go to the bar and I want to negotiate for free drinks for my friends. Roll your persuasion. Boom, done. But then there's other people that just want to role play all that out. That's two very different styles. And you need to know what kind of style you're going to be on. That's the first thing. You need to understand what the social contract is going to look like for the campaign. And everything under Session Zero falls within that social contract.
Well, I think that some of those setting expectations, some of the things you can do with setting expectations, you can vary from positive to negative ways of addressing expectations for the player. And I don't mean like negative as in bad. I just mean things you want versus things you don't want. Those are two very different conversations. And we've, over the course of playing games together, I think we've devised a number of tools that we use for that. Lines and veils are a thing that we're always going back to. I still haven't gotten to fully implement it yet, but I really love knife theory. I'm a really big fan, and I would love to run a game or play a game where knife theory comes into play.
We'll probably do a segment on it later, but do a quick overview of knife theory for people.
Sure. Knife theory is a way for you to give your players agency regarding the things in game that you get to use against them. You have and usually it's going to be in character stuff. You ask your players, give me X number of knives that I can then use to stab you in the back, essentially. Narrative knives. So things, they can be people or situations that they're in, relationships that they have. So I have an evil twin who likes to pretend to be me and they live in another country. It's like, okay, well, that's a knife. If I tell Logan that that's a knife for me, Logan then knows that whenever he wants, if it becomes usable for the narrative, he knows that I have expressly given him permission to use that complication in the story, because I've said this is a complication in my character's life that is like, have at it. It is a combination of a safety tool because you're actively giving them a list of, you are unabashedly allowed to use this against me. I think it's fun. It will complicate my character's life, but I like that because, that's where drama comes from, is having complications. But at the same time, it's also a really good brainstorming tool for the DM because, you spend how much time reading through your players' character sheets, trying to find the little things you can start plugging together to make stories that they are involved in. But knife theory is, give me a list of 10 to 15 things that I can just pull. And once you have those lists, one, that those things exist, and two, you can use them. And your players have basically signed a waiver that says, this is stuff you can use against me.
Absolutely.
And like I said, that's going to be most of the time in character details, but it can be other things too. If you actively are like, all right, I'm a little like squeaky about something, but I want to get better about it, you could put that in the knives list too, if you wanted to. It's like, this is a thing I want to work through. If you're specifically using DM as a therapy tool, I could definitely see that being a thing you could do.
And knife theory is an excellent counterpoint to things like lines and veils. Where instead of asking for the things you don't want people to talk about on stream, during the game, sorry, not on stream, then you can ask them what they do. What are areas that what are lines I can cross? Well, not lines, but what are those places that we can go that are dramatic and traumatic? So it's a positive way to ask for that. And then you still need to do lines and veils after, which for those who are not familiar with lines and veils, basically the idea is these are things that will make the players overly uncomfortable to the point of not having fun anymore. There's nothing wrong with being a little uncomfortable while playing if it's a good kind of discomfort, the type that you get from watching horror movies or gore movies if you're into those. It's that idea of still feeling safe. But some people have things that will hit them that make them not feel safe, where it's like they just don't want to be anywhere near that. And it can come from trauma, it can come from just life in general, it can just be a phobia. We have a lot of just things. We had a campaign which I loved, that we had somebody who had such a dire fear of spiders that we could not talk about them on game, so we changed them all to llamas. Every time there's a spider on screen, we called it a llama. And it was hilarious. It became a thing, and it was okay. It was just an 8-legged llama, and it was great, and it was a lot of fun. It was a perfect way to kind of resolve that, something that we discovered in the middle of game, because I, as the DM, did not do a very good job with lines and veils early on. That's the other thing. People will discover new lines and veils about themselves during the game. So you've got to be a little bit aware. You've got to understand that, okay, you may need to go back and retcon something, or at least change something in the future so that it doesn't come up anymore. Be open enough that people come to you. But I'm getting more into the full discussion on it. We'll talk more about those later.
But yeah,
one big thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying the llama fix was amazing. And honestly, now that has allowed us to now think about that sort of thing when we're doing a session 0 or when we're setting expectations. Asking about phobias might be a thing you need to actively ask people about, because they might not think about the fact that something could come up. And especially if you're dealing in a fantasy setting, someone's got a small critter fear and they really don't want to deal with it and it really bothers them. You're in a situation where it could easily be, there's a giant one of those things now and it's attacking you. So being conscious of the kinds of things that can, being conscious of the kinds of things that can come up depending on your setting, and knowing to ask some of those questions, because someone just might not self-examine enough, and it's part of your job as a DM to help them self-examine either at the beginning or midstream, figuring out mid-campaign, let's assess. And that's something we can talk about at some point too. I'm gonna make a note about. Perfect. Yeah. Self-assessment.
The last thing I want to say, and this is very important with session 0, and people don't understand this because sometimes it can be so hard to get a game that people feel desperate. I know when I was in high school, I was very lucky to have a game going on, but when I didn't, when there were times when I didn't have a game, I was desperate. I would literally sit down with anybody to play because I wanted that interaction, that connection. So one of the things that everyone at the table needs to be okay with is the idea of somebody walking away. If somebody comes to the table and you start doing session 0 and they're like, these things really aren't for me. If you guys are dead set on playing the game like this, I don't think I'm going to play. And everybody at the table, everyone needs to be okay with that. The person walking away needs to know it's okay to walk away. And then the other players need to go, it's okay, that's okay. We'll either change it, or if this is really what we're going to do, we'll get you on the next game, and we'll talk about what you might want to play or how you might want to play. And then that person can go and find another game. I know that's hard to do sometimes because you're just so desperate to want to play with a certain group that you're willing to sit down and play a game you don't enjoy because you want to be around them. I've done it. I did it a few years ago. It is okay to walk away. It always is. And if anybody gives you a hard time for it, they are wrong. You are not. So never be afraid to walk away from a game that you're not enjoying. Start by trying to talk about it with people. Let them know you're not enjoying. And if they don't, then say, okay, well, this just isn't for me. And I'd be glad to play board games with you guys another time. And walk away and just go ahead and leave. And if a DM sits down and goes, this is the type of game I want to run, and none of the players want to run that type of game, as a DM, you need to be a little bit more flexible. Try to meet them halfway, find something new, or it's okay to walk away. Don't sit and try to force a game your players don't want to play on them because you're going to have a bad time.
Don't French fry when you shoot a pizza. You're going to have a bad time. Sorry. I don't make many South Park jokes. That's like one of the ones I make. All right,
everyone's still stuck on llama queens.
It's quite the topic. Lawmolf.
Lothma. Lothama.
Okay, so another thing that we can briefly outline out is maybe setting expectations. Part of that would be introducing people to the safety tools, which we can, again, that can be another topic. But that's a good thing to go over during session zeros, because you're going to want to have those tools from the outset. So making sure they understand how to use them, which ones are going to be actually useful for the game. So I'll add it to the list. I think that would be a really good one to talk about maybe next session or maybe next episode, just going through safety tools and why they'd be useful, why they might not be. I've been reading up a little bit on some different opinions on different safety tools, some of the drawbacks of a few of them. When we've talked about knife theory and lines and veils, and I think those play in to safety tools.
Yeah,
those are preventative safety tools. But some of the safety tools are more in the thick of it during game. So we'll talk about the X card and the support flower, and one that I just found out about called script changes. Script changes, which I think is a fun tool. And we do it a little bit. The easiest way I can describe it is creating a meta language while you're dealing with your players, that if somebody's not comfortable with what's happening, they can ask to fast forward. Can we just fast forward? I was like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, it's the pan to the fire.
Yeah, a couple times.
It's panning to the fireplace, but not necessarily just in romantic situations.
Now, there's sometimes when I'm, as a DM, you're creating a moment or you're doing a cutscene or whatever, and it's tough to fast forward through those. But if it's just kind of grossness or ridiculousness or something that somebody's really uncomfortable with in the moment, sure, yes, absolutely. Spin on, fast forward, whatever.
Coming up with a situation that I feel like if you can see your players, like streaming, it might be a little harder if you're doing a bunch of stuff. But if you're at a table and you have a player that is getting uncomfortable, you can just have them visually fast forward, or just like wrap it up, and then you can take that cue. But there's other things you can do too. Rewinding is basically just retconning, which we've done before, where it's like, all right, well, never mind, we'll just say it happened like this. And just because it gets said at the table doesn't mean that it has to be locked in. If you, as the DM, want to give people the agency to be like, can we just say that didn't happen? That really bothers me. It's an option.
I retconned last night a bunch of stuff because I forgot that Thunderwave pushes things away from you, and they were attacking a crystal wall, and it blew shards back at them. It was a defensive wall because they were standing right next to it when they did Thunderwave, of course, because you're close. And another one of the characters used Eldritch Blast, but they have some sort of evocation that pushes stuff away as well. And then the third person used Thunderwave, and all of a sudden you get this idea that I caught it on the Eldritch Blast. I think I realized, it pushes away, so the crystals will get pushed when they kind of explode off, so you're not going to take any damage. And then everyone's like, but all of our spells do that. I went, yeah, okay, let's go back. Because we had dropped a player. I mean, a player had dropped to nothing. They'd spent a lot of healing spells that they were probably going to need later, which they actually didn't end up needing at all. They did a really good job. But yeah, so anyway, that's Countless Heroes episode 64. It magics.
It magics.
It magics. Because the question was, what does your magic wand do? And it magics. We have a clip of that flying around somewhere on our Twitch page, so you can go find that. Alrighty. Should we move on?
Sure.
Alright. Let me go.
Dun, 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 dun.
Evil Shmeevil.
Okay, so we actually... This came about, so we're going to be talking about alignment, and hopefully specifically, that's what Evil Shmeevil's about. It's about alignments.
Oh, all right.
Specifically alternative alignments.
Because
talking about the thing we just did.
He doesn't even want to talk about alignment anymore.
But the thing we just did, which was an alternative way to talk about alignment. It's not necessarily a lock-in, but just like visualizing it in a different way. People like taking personality quizzes. People like taking, people like having that. A lot of people like having that sort of prescribed label. Like,
sure. Yeah. And there are times, even though WotC is downplaying it a lot, they were told they had to include it because it wouldn't be D&D without alignment. At least that's my.
People would have
I don't know if that's
people
true.
would shit a brick if it wasn't there.
But
there are people that would shit a brick if it was not there.
I'm pretty sure Mike Merle's very specifically said that he wouldn't have included it if he didn't have to. But again, don't quote me on that. It's just something I thought I read. But there's a place where alignment comes in, and that's things like, for me, like the Sphinx. Last night they fought a Sphinx. This is really good for this whole night. We're going to talk a lot about what we just did. There was a Sphinx last night, and in the mind of most players, a Sphinx is at least a lawful, if not good, creature that is bound through its riddles. It's like a good fae. Basically, it's going to be bound through what it agrees to and what it says it's going to do, and that is kind of what they dealt with last night. But I always thought it was funny because what if the one? I mean, we've heard of. I'm trying to remember the Sphinx as a mystical creature came from, obviously Egyptian, but where it came from is the idea of doing riddles and things like that. What if that was just the exception? Sphinx. What if all the Sphinx are dicks? And that just happens to be the
Bill can't give me a straight answer. He has to rhyme every fucking thing. Like, why can't? Like, no, I don't care. It's time. It's time, Bill. I get the answer to the riddle.
He's like the librarian nerd. This is the problem. So this brings me to another problem that has nothing to do with this necessarily. We just created 5 new races for our campaign, and one of the things we struggled with is we needed the players who played those races to be stereotypical versions of that race. They couldn't be the exception. We couldn't allow any of them to do anything really outlandish. They couldn't be the Drizzt of their race because it was the introduction of them. And I thought that was kind of cool. When you're streaming, that's a good streaming topic to talk about is the idea that if you're going to create something new for stream, don't introduce the exception to the rule, introduce the rule, introduce the stereotype of it first.
Unless, and the only exception I would make to that is unless your campaign or story revolves around the culture you're introducing. Then you can have a character that's a little outside the box because that makes them an access for the audience where you have the player experiencing what's going on in this world, and the world is the status quo, and your character is a force for change in that status quo. That seems like a fair opportunity to do that.
Second-Hand Samurai just said that he finds the law versus chaos alignment a very useful tool, but ignores the good versus evil. And I think I'm a little similar to that. I see the morally gray area of good to evil. I mean, the Countless Heroes could just be called the morally gray show, and it would be pretty apt. But it's the law versus chaos, not in the respect of the law. I am the law. It's more of a order versus chaos in my mind, and I like to use that aspect lots, and I do that. But you have a lot of different thoughts on alignment, and we've talked and looked at a lot of different optional rules for alignment or different ways of looking at what we might consider alignment. That we're going to talk about. One of them, though, I'd like to talk briefly about is your grid you found from someone. I'm trying to remember.
Dale Kingsmill, who runs Monarch's Factory on YouTube. She is she's got sort of a comedy web series on there about werewolves, but then she also does a lot of sort of talking head videos about DMing and D&D. She recently did a video, and we'll add links to anything we reference in these shows, but she recently did a video about alternate alignment systems and things that she'd been inspired to try with her characters. And I thought some of these ideas were super duper cool. And Logan and I have played around with them a little bit since then because we, mid-campaign, we wanted to create a sort of a self-assessment that the players could do for themselves and each other, just sort of, and I find this useful partly because when you start a character and you write down the rules for that character, like, this is the personality they are, these are their values, you then start playing that character 3 nights a week, and that can change. You either change as a person or you realize things about that character that were not necessarily things you had realized when you started. And so the idea of this self-assessment was to give them a chance to sort of rate themselves on these different like personality and value systems, and then let everybody else rate everyone. So you could sort of see this splatter, this plot of where you were placed. So it was your perception of your character versus your party's perception of your character.
Yeah, and that was one of those moments where you and I have the same idea at the exact same time once we were talking about those grids, and we're like, we put it on there like, oh, let's rate everyone, and we sat and we just like put everyone like, okay, here, and they're like, we totally need to have everyone do this, and it worked out really well, and it's what became very interesting with a West Marches style campaign. While I, the DM, am playing 5 nights a week, not everybody plays. Everyone only plays about 2 nights a week. So they get, and I try to mix them up, but unfortunately, because of schedules, you kind of get lumped into these groups where only a few people kind of switch in and out here and there. So it was very interesting to see the perspectives. And the thing is, though, of course, it created more questions than it answered, because I don't know if it's because people know each other outside of the game better that they rated each other differently, or it's because they're from the same generation, or it's because the people play their characters differently, or what. But there's a lot of different questions to see how you see different people rating things. And it's just a very interesting.
So yeah, we had a lot of fun with these alternate alignments that Dale Kingsmill not necessarily came up with exclusively, but she introduced them in her videos and showed some examples of how to think about your character outside of lawful, chaotic, good, evil. And so you still use that grid that you can place things on, but there were different metrics that you could rank your character on. We had I'll pull it up, we'll take a look. We had things like, instead of good and evil, we thought, all right, well, is this person's primary motivator and focus other people? Or is their primary motivator things that are they very internal with how they focus on their values? Do they have a lot more, I mean, it's kind of sort of do they have more of an altruistic tendency or a more insular tendency when they're thinking about problem solving, when they're considering the world around them? What is their focus? And you can potentially justify that as selfless versus selfish, but we were trying not to force a player to define those terms in a way that we were. That partly kept the survey from being 100% clear, because I think some people interpreted words differently than we did, which, is a fun conversation topic anyway with them. Be like, what did you mean when you put this person in a different spot completely from everybody else? We had the self versus others. We had whether or not their worldview was idealistic or more cynical. We had, do they approach the world with confidence or wariness? And do they think about the world with reason or passion? And so we had these grids with those on the X and Y axes, and you can mix and match any of those. And Dale talks about putting, not just those things, but if you have, this is recursive DM tips. So Dale talks about something Matt Colville talked about, which is having themes in your campaign that are opposing each other. The forces that are opposing each other in the story of your campaign. So it could be innovation versus traditionalism, or like I said, the self versus others, whether you're going to be altruistic or you're going to be more protective of your home space. And those competing themes are another axes that you can map your characters to. And if you have your players do that at the very beginning of your game, all of a sudden you can find factions you can play off each other within your party. You have, everybody but this one person is all in this camp, but the other camp has this one outlier. How can we play with that? So you all of a sudden are being armed by your party with information about how you can craft your narrative. And so instead of saying, are you good or evil? It's like, well, do you think society belongs in your focus? Or do you think that you are more important, like exceptionalism versus altruism or something like that? And that is information about your character's personality, but that's also something that you can utilize as a DM. And I just want there to be like, and I'm a total fucking nerd, but I just want like worksheets when I start games, because I love plotting my character on
Secondhand Samurai, I'd be interested in hearing more what you're talking about, big circle versus small circle as a format, and where that comes from and what that means exactly.
And a little bit, and I'm sort of jotting basic notes down here. I'll probably go back into the episode and listen through what we talk about for some notes. But another example of an alternative to alignment would just be a more finely tuned concept of your character's value system. And I utilize Ash's Guide to RPG Personality. That is a website you can get, ashami.com. Ash has put together this really comprehensive sort of psychological examination of your character, and I have found it so useful for, and I'm a big proponent of ad-libbing and sort of discovering your character as you go, but sometimes you don't know where to even start, and it would be really nice to have a baseline of, all right, this is where they're normally at. Like, it even goes into so much detail where it's, what's their baseline emotion?
Right.
How do they approach situations 90% of the time? And you can figure out what that is, or you set their basic motivators. So you have, my person's motivators are achievement. She wants to be the best she can be, and that informs all of her decision making. And so it's almost like getting a prompt for improv, where you have this, all right, here's your baseline, run with that. That's where your character is right now. And there's so much detail in Ash's personality guide stuff that I really love going through it, and it feels really perhaps overwhelming with how much stuff is there. But if you're into that, if you're into the character building aspect, it is a really useful tool for feeling like you're holistically thinking about your character as a person. Because it is very much that is all the facets, or many of the facets of a person. What's your relationship to religion? What's your family life like? What are your fears? Like I said, what are your primary motivators? All that kind of stuff. And I dig that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Very cool.
I went a little straying into character building instead of alignment, but I like that stuff versus the good evil alignment. There's more nuance and potentially more interesting stories to find when you start breaking out of that mold.
Should we move on?
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited. I have it pulled up, and I don't know how much of it you know.
Pulled up what? What
the next topic. Look at the next topic.
The brew?
Yeah. We can talk
about the brew.
We can do a little bit. We can talk a little bit about what that's going to be. I have an example, unless you want to talk about something different.
So Taming of the Brew is the original name of WAND Radio.
Yes,
and it's a play off of
You're welcome. I would not let it die. I needed to have it exist.
And it is a homebrew review section where we're going to pick a piece of homebrew and talk about it. We've got a lot of stuff sitting out there.
Please send us more.
Some important guests. But if you have a particular homebrew item, please send it to us. You can send it to us at drpg@nerdsmith.org, or you can at us at
Discover RPG Show.
Discover RPG Show on Twitter. And we'll have we'll get a couple other things going. Oh, you can also join the Discord down below in the doobly-doo in the downtown. You can go over to
I don't want that. Do not like doobly-doo or bust.
Go over to our Discord and see some things over there. That you can talk to us there. We'll have a channel there soon, or just yell at us there.
I already did it. I beat you to it. But yeah, you can post questions and suggestions and homebrew links and any other DM stuff that you might want our opinion on. We can watch something and talk about whatever somebody else talked about. Basically, we can make a response video to somebody else's DM video or something like that.
Would love the opportunity. We're going to start probably on Sunday nights, not every night, not every week. Hopefully, what I want to do was maybe on some Sunday evening, spend an hour, short games, doing some play testing that we would then talk about on Wednesday. So we'll get a small group together on Sunday nights. We'll play test out some homebrew or RPG games or whatever. We won't talk about them then. We're just going to play them. We'll probably stream it real quick and be like, hey, here it is. we're going to talk about this on Wednesday, and then Angela will bring back our thoughts and things on the following Wednesday. So if you have any homebrew items out there, or more specifically any independent RPGs you'd like us to try out, small RPGs like the 200-word RPGs are a good one to go with. We'll take a look at those. If they're interesting to us, we'll go ahead and put them on the list to do that as well.
Yeah. I already have a home
brew, and then after that, we're going to play a game.
Okay. But I already have.
I've decided. It's decreed.
Okay. We will occasionally intersperse our topics with fun little games and trivia and stuff.
Yes. To give us a little bit of a mind break.
I do already have a play test that I want to run, or at least want to develop.
Yes, but we need to ask if we can stream it.
Yes, we can ask if we can stream it.
Wait to hear back from the creators if we can stream it.
Yeah. So I definitely like the idea of, as we do these, and you and I have talked about this, discussing both the mechanical advantages and the thematic directions you could take, the narrative potential.
Thematic is definitely going to take precedence. Mechanical is only going to be in certain circumstances if I see interest in talking about it. For the most part, we want to focus on the thematic side of things. There are a lot of people out there that talk about power gaming and talk about how you can use these items to break things. And there's a guy out there that tells you
how it is balanced or unbalanced.
Damage if you get all the right homebrews. I'm not interested in any of that. What we're going to talk about is things that what I might do as a DM to change things to make it a little bit more playable. As I've done for a few others out there. I've given advice on several homebrew items that people have come to me about. So,
and that's another thing that I'm totally down for opening up to. If people want to send us homebrew items that they're still developing and they'd like us to take a look, that's definitely sounds like a thing that we could use in this segment.
Sure, I don't mind. We talk about it after after they release it.
Yeah, I've got classes that I want to talk about, but I think it might be useful to have you read them too, and then we go over them after you've had a chance to look at them. There's eventually, in this one I really want to go through. I'll have to find the name of it. I want to talk about the modular class creation homebrew content that somebody made, where they don't want to limit somebody to hear, like, they basically want you to be able to modularly create your class. So every single ability that the classes have been extracted from the classes and turned into feats that you can purchase with a certain amount of points. So you can make a completely custom class with everything that's been given scores and things, and you can just point by to have your abilities.
This is the layout thing that we talked about.
I think it's cool. I really dig the idea.
We use that as a tool a lot. So we did it a little differently. We didn't approach it as a point buy, but what we did is we created the races kind of based on other things and kind of reflavoring things. And then we went back to that document to see if it kind of fit in line with what they thought was a balanced character.
This is basically a manual of every ability that any of the classes have, and you can go through and just say, all right, my character can do X, Y, and Z.
Classes.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that sounds really neat.
Which ideally would allow you to not have, all right, this is really cool. I hit 6th level. Oh my god, I hate what my class gets in this. Everybody else got something really cool, and I didn't. And you can choose to do things like, all right, I want an ability score improvement here. Or I want to be able to do this at this level. And every level, you can choose something that you then get the ability to. It basically eliminates the class system. It lets you customize what you want, which I think is pretty cool. It's probably a little overbearing for somebody who doesn't know the system. But if you have a bunch of people
advanced features only.
Yeah, if you have people that are like, listen, I just want to play what I want to play. I want to have a monk, but I also want it to be able to speak to plants. Like, you can do that. You can build a monk that can do that.
Yeah, but you could also, I would easily see you could take a class that exists, find the abilities you don't like, and sell them back for those points, and then just rebuy other abilities that make more sense.
Yeah.
So you could start with the classes that exist, and then kind of just trade things in and out as a more approachable way. If you didn't want to start from scratch, or you wanted to start from a template, that's how you would do that. So that's a neat idea.
So I'm going to go back through it. I'm going to go back through that document. I have the PDFs from the homebrew that somebody put out, and I'm really curious to go through it and be like, oh yeah, this is a neat way to do this, or whoa, that's overly complicated. I want to take a look at it a little more detail rather than just the concept, which I do really like.
Perfect.
But yeah, I'll have a class for us to talk about next week. I have a class that I want to talk about.
Awesome. Is it the one you showed me that you teased me with? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, I'm very excited about that.
But yeah, when it comes to homebrew classes or something, what we'll do is we'll talk about, all right, here are the abilities of this class. Here's the flavor that person has put into this class. This is what I would do with this class. How cool would it be to make this thing and have it play into the world in this way? And so basically I want to just do what I like doing in my free time anyway, which is, it'd be really fun to make this PC.
I agree. That's awesome.
Alrighty.
Very cool. Anything else with Taming of the Brew that you want to talk about?
No, I think we did a good job at least covering the basics of what we want to do with the segment. A lot of these, for the record, a lot of the stuff in our session plan is going to be a recurring segment, and we might talk about different things, but they all basically fall under a certain category. So we'll probably do Evil Shmeevil again if we want to talk about alignment again, or we'll do Taming. Well, we're going to do Taming of the Brew. Every time you see that in the session plan, you'll know we're going to talk about some homebrew thing. We're just, it makes it easier for us to organize our thoughts by having recurring segments like that.
Right.
So you had a game?
I did have a game. I'm just getting the timer set up since we need a timer.
Oh no, there's a timer? Do I see the timer, or do I have to be on? Do I have to have something live playing?
No, I'm gonna put it up there.
Okay. I don't know what's about to
We
happen.
have a wonderful little game here called Geek Out. I'm sure a lot of people have played it before, and I thought it'd be fun if we went week to week, trying to beat our score. So what I'm gonna have you do, I'm gonna pull a random card,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna have you roll a die.
What kind of die?
Pick the number. I don't know yet. I gotta pull a card. Looks like there are 5. Roll a d5. How many of those you got rolling?
Mm-hmm.
And we get to veto 1 card a week.
All right.
So
well, I'm just
like,
gonna have
that.
Google do it.
All right. You have Google do it. I'm gonna go ahead and get the timer up there. How long do we think we want? A minute?
What am I doing?
We're gonna guess how many of something. I'm gonna give you a sample. Teachers at Hogwarts. How many teachers at Hogwarts we can come up with in however long time we want to give ourselves? 1 minute?
Yes.
2 minutes?
1 would be fine.
All right. 1 minute. All right. So
what was the random number? Do I need that anymore?
A D5. Yeah, because that was just a sample. So I'm going to pull a new card, and then we're going to pull a random thing. So it is like the game itself is more like a name that tune, where I can name that tune in 5 notes. I can name it in 4 notes. Only it's backwards. I can name 3 teachers at Hogwarts. I can name 4 teachers at Hogwarts. But I thought it'd be just fun to use these as coming up with as many things as we possibly can. Did it look like I handed Angie a piece of paper? I could look. We're good at miming like that. There you go.
I'm backwards, so
if we could teleport
I mess it up
things across the nation, that would be amazing.
Nobody saw it, but Andy and Mike on Countless Heroes still beat everybody when it came to passing things across the internet magic. Because Andy had a can of peanuts, and Mike was eating peanuts. And I was like, oh, it'd be really funny if you tossed a peanut at Andy, and Andy caught a peanut. And when Mike tossed a peanut, Andy conjured, which I didn't know he had at the time, a pint of peanut butter ice cream, and was like, what the fuck? And I didn't know he'd had that at the desk, so it was real good.
Was that on stream?
That was during break. So nobody got to see it.
Darn. Alrighty, so you roll a D5 there?
Yes, I got a
I'll
3.
read the question, and I'm going to start the timer.
I got a 3.
You roll a 3. I'm vetoing that one. All right, there's this. Oh, I'm going to be horrible at this. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start the timer. The question is 2 technologies or more. The goal is 2 at least. But we want to come up as many as possible. 2 technologies from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, son of a bitch. You're going to beat me.
And we're starting. Towel.
Oh.
Count.
Okay, the Hitchhiker's Guide.
I don't know the technologies themselves. I have no idea what the names of the technologies are. I've got nothing.
Are we going back and forth?
I'm not even looking at chat. I have no idea. I was thinking together we'll come up with as many as we can.
Sure.
There was the
Babblefish. The
Babblefish, absolutely. Okay, Babblefish is one.
The I don't think drinks count as technology. The Pan-Galactic Gargle Blast.
No, I don't think that does.
Which Hitchhiker's Guide are we talking about? Any incarnation?
Any incarnation.
In the movie, the lightsaber bread toaster.
The lightsaber bread toaster. Okay, there's one. Gosh, I just watched the BBC
the improbability drive.
Yes,
improbability drive.
There's 3.
Androids.
I'm not looking at chat. I
know I'm not
Androids.
Either. Okay.
Androids is good. That's 4.
Doors. The doors that sigh. The happy doors.
One of the things that jump up and oh damn it! All right, there it is. There's our timer. Wow, that's loud. I'm glad you guys can't hear. 4. We got to 4.
We beat it. Yeah.
So our 4 is our goal. That will be our goal to beat next week.
Okay.
With the next question or whatever we do this again.
Sure.
1 minute.
Logan and I have the same the same kind of game. So at some point I'll also pull from Geek Battle the tiebreakers, which are the same sort of thing. It's a back and forth listing of things. I'll take a look. My dog is sniffing around right now.
All right.
All right, so yay game. Next subject? Do you want to talk about the next thing?
Yes. All right, let's see here.
This one was hard fought for because we were trying to get it to fit the font to fit in the banner. I wanted it so badly. I'm sorry, Kyle, in chat. The pupper.
What's wrong?
The pupper walked away.
We'll have the pupper cams next.
Yes, we'll have puppy cam.
All right. Parlez Vous Infernal. Angela, please explain.
Okay, so Deep Thought. Kyle also put Deep Thought out there. That was a really good point. Deep Thought's a good example of a technology from Hitchhiker's Guide. It's also the name of my computer. I called it Deep Thought.
I called mine.
Anyway. So Parlez Vous Infernal is going to be our segment where we talk about languages and communication in specifically D&D. That's where our wheelhouse is going to be. Right. We're going to venture out into other games and game systems, but that's its own segment is talking about other game systems. So we'll be talking about D&D 5e, maybe beyond 5e. But so we'll be talking about different aspects of language, how to utilize language in your game, whether or not you want to go like full out and express what it sounds like. Part of my inspiration for doing this today was there's a thing that I really love that DMs do sometimes, and I really, really enjoy when they describe what languages sound like. Because clearly we're not speaking in, Dwarvish when we're playing. 9 times out of 10, common is the English analog, which I don't always love. I don't really love that that characterization. I have become a really big proponent of the idea of common in D&D being more of a pidgin language, and as a so if you haven't taken anthropology classes or sociology classes, or you just don't know what that means, pidgin, Pidgin. Pidgin meaning not that. Pidgin meaning a language that is sort of a hodgepodge of a bunch of different key vocabulary. so that people who speak different languages can then communicate with each other in at least a rudimentary way. So I do like. Go ahead.
Can we talk for a minute about how you're so used to me making random stupid noises that you almost completely went past my pigeon noises without saying anything?
Yep, because I know.
Times before you finally acknowledged it.
Yep.
I just want to go that little insight into our relationship.
But yeah, so the idea that that common is a language that has a lot of borrowed terms, and I personally enjoy doing the what language is what real language, because then you can pretend that the borrowed words that you're using when you're talking in English are actually borrowed from these other words. So, I've never prescribed to this, but a few people think that Dwarvish is Spanish. I don't really ascribe to that opinion, but
Scottish.
Yeah, but if you say that Dwarvish is Spanish, you can say that, biblioteca, or not biblioteca. What's a good French word that we use in English? Say like a certain je ne sais quoi. You say something like that, and so you just say, okay, well, French is Elvish, so you just borrowed an Elvish word, and that can be fun. But I do really enjoy the idea of DMs describing either through analogy with a real language or just doing a more descriptive way of what that language sounds like, especially if you don't speak it. And with common being treated as more of a pidgin, I really like the idea of turning human into a language you can speak. That gives humans the same level of otherness that all the other races do, and it makes it a little less like, well, the humans are the default, and English is the default, therefore there's an incredibly huge Anglo-centric perspective on D&D, which you can make the argument is kind of fantasy in general, kind of has that. So I think it's one good step to expanding that a little bit beyond that traditional Anglo-European world building that often happens with high fantasy games, right, or just high fantasy settings. So yeah, I really like the idea of common being everybody speaks common because everyone has to speak common because it's the common language, but then everybody, including humans, can have their own cultural terms.
I agree completely.
Languages, rather.
So I mean, I've heard a lot of almost everybody I know says that Elvish is French, and Dwarven is either Scottish or I've heard Spanish. Gnomish often is. I'm blanking.
I have an answer to that, but I don't think it's your answer.
What's your answer?
I always think that it's Norwegian. some sort of Scandinavian language. It always sounds really.
So my question comes down to what is something like infernal?
Oh, I have an answer for this.
Oh, goody.
I have a couple of these. I always saw infernal as this sort of very seductive sounding language. Something with maybe a lot of... I took it... If I was going to do a real world analogy, I would almost say like Arabic would be an interesting offshoot, just because of like I want to do something that has like trills in it and has a very nice tonality to it. But I really like this idea that because you have other things that aren't necessarily speaking infernal, you've got abyssal, you've got other sort of monstrous languages. I never took infernal as being an ugly language. I always liked the idea of it being very seductive, a very sensual sounding language, not necessarily French, but just something like that.
So my next question is, bugbears, I think we agree, are Russian.
Yes, they are.
But they speak goblins. Does that mean all goblins are Russian?
That's a good question. I
goblins,
like that.
Hobgoblins, and bugbears.
All speak goblin. They do not speak bugbear? There is no bugbear.
There's not a bugbear language. No.
Then yes, I think by that logic, maybe they just speak a variant of goblin. Maybe their dialect is different.
Their dialect, yes, they have that's the bugbear dialect.
Because all your goblins are like from Jersey.
So what about celestial?
I characterize Celestial, and I've done this in a previous game where my character spoke Celestial. I always took it as a sort of hard to translate, but it felt almost like music, like it was choral in a way that could make it sound a little more complicated sounding. I don't know why I always equate Celestial to Gallifreyan in Doctor Who, but I do. Not that Gallifreyan gets spoken, but the idea of like the idea of like sort of celestial geometry being a part of its script, like it being very elaborate. So it's almost like you're looking at a piece of, say, Gallifreyan's going to be the offshoot here. You're looking at a very large symbol that is scripting that means something in Celestial. It basically reads like notation if you spoke Celestial, if you were fluent in it. I like that idea of it being sort of a very overly complicated, very delicate, very musical sounding thing. Like you sound like you're singing praises while you're speaking it.
Okay, I can see that.
I'm apparently cribbing off of Tessa's notes for Celestial when I said, what do you call it? Celestial geometry.
So then what, so let's pick a strange dialect, like Cockney.
Okay.
You got a language for that?
For Cockney? Oh, I need a list of all the 5e languages.
Right. I got a list of some of them.
Halfling, hands down, is Cockney.
Okay, all right, I can see that. I can go with that. Right.
I also like Abyssal. My thoughts about Abyssal are fun to me. I read this somewhere and I just really latched onto it and I've never let go. That Abyssal it's meant to be characteristic of a very chaotic place. And by that account, if you are not fluent in Abyssal, like if you don't learn Abyssal from someone or have some very intuitive ability to learn languages, Abyssal is fucking terrifyingly hard to learn. It, like, the rules change. It doesn't seem to have any syntax. It can, if someone's not paying attention, it just sounds like nonsense and could like drive you nuts listening to it. That it is just, it doesn't even have cohesive rules that you can follow because of what a chaotic place it comes from. Right. So I just like this idea that it's just noise. It just sounds like noise when you're speaking it. It doesn't sound like it's structured at all. You couldn't piece together what it is by just listening unless you were like super. It's like playing 4-tier chess of languages because it's just really overly complicated. And almost it's trying to give it intention makes it harder to speak. Like it's not about intention or it's not about structure. It's something else. It's some other sort of mystical way of speaking something. So
I love it. Well, we'll probably spend more time on that later.
Oh yeah. A lot of different no. I'm going to think about more of these and want to talk about them.
One of the questions I would love to answer in the future episode.
Yeah.
What were the Kenku's original language like?
Ooh. Well,
we'll talk about it. Future episode.
Okay. Well, I just mean I have a character who was a Kenku that involved Abyssal, so I had an answer to that question.
Abyssal? Wait.
No, Abyssal? It was not Abyssal as their origin, but I had a character who that was the other language he spoke. Or he would have been able to speak. So that was the other thing you knew.
I thought Kenku couldn't learn other languages.
They can't speak other languages. They could learn to write other languages.
Oh, okay. All right. Sure. Silly me. All right. Are you ready to move on?
Yeah, sure.
There we go. Oh, fancy.
What's the next one?
Fade in, fade out.
Ah, this one's fun.
Funhouse rule.
Literally fun. So, sort of an offshoot of homebrewing, but we thought it warranted its own subject. The idea of house rules. Things that are not explicitly in the PHB or the DMG, but we think personally make our game or could make a game run smoother or just be more complicated if you feel like making it more fun and complicated if you like something. We can talk about our house rules for Countless Heroes and why we came up with them and how they work. And we can also review other house rules if we see other things that people have come up with that are outside. I mean, this particular segment is a little outside of the idea of safety tools could probably fall under this. And though that's the big one, I would say, is probably safety tools would be a good example.
Yeah.
But we've done a few things with what was the best example I have that we've started implementing is determination.
That's a complicated one. I was thinking house rules. I mean, some of the house rules that I've dealt with in the past are if the die hits the floor, you have to re-roll it.
Oh,
yeah.
It
could be simple stuff. Sure. The house rules a big part of house rules belongs in your session 0. You should be talking about those in advance. A house rule could be a part of character creation. Roll 5d6 and drop the two lowest instead of 4d6, or one of my favorite stat rolling house rules is roll, let's see here, you roll, that's 4 times 6 is 24. You roll 24d6, drop the 6 lowest, and then rearrange the stats any way you want. This is great for min-maxers and people who want to have really good stats, but also usually leaves someone with at least a 17 or an 18 so they don't feel screwed. And then they can divide up their dice how they want to either maximize their negatives, which I like to do sometimes, or to kind of even those things out. And they're still really good at one stat. But yeah, there's a lot of house rules out there, and we're going to talk about those in this section. We'll pick a house rule every time we do this segment, and we'll talk about it in depth, I think. Determination is one of them. We can talk a little bit about determination today. So determination comes from the idea that I hate when I'm playing a game, loathe with all of my being. When I am, as a player, I am sitting there, especially as a fighter or something like that, and I run up to the bad guy and I roll the die and I miss. Like, let's say I have 2 attacks and I miss both. And then the following turn, I miss both again. And then the following turn, I miss both again. And I've got entire combats, 4, 5, 6 rounds of doing absolutely nothing because the dice screwed me. And as a fighter, your turn is already shorter than most others because you're going to swing your sword, especially as a low-level fighter. There's not much else you're doing. You might second wind here and there or whatever, but you can do that. You're like, oh, I second wind, I swing and I miss. Okay, I can deal with my second wind, move on. So there's not a lot of ability to do that. So we created determination, originally called desperation. Determination, we want to make it more
point of desperation, which I thought the pun was fun, but I agree with renaming it.
So the original way that I phrased it was, if you had done nothing significant or accomplished nothing over the past 2 turns, then you would then gain desperation, which we now turn to determination. So what we say now is, if you've attempted to do things and you've not succeeded on any dice roll over the past 2 turns, you gain determination. So if you've had 0 success, now this doesn't count if you don't do anything. You can't just move twice and count that as a turn. You have to actually attempt to do something. But if after 2 turns you've done nothing, not been able to accomplish any of your goals because the dice are just screwing you rotten, the following turn you have determination. Determination gives you advantage on every roll you take during your turn, not round, but turn. And so there you have advantage. Now, if at that point you still fail on everything across the board, in our game, I give you a hero die in addition to determination the following round. And a hero die originally could only add a d6 if you used it to any d20 roll. So that would give you advantage plus a d6 on your following turn. You had to use it right away. Now, however, hero dice can give you an automatic success. So what I would say is, you get a hero die, you have to use the following round, you're just going to get an auto success on your head, which might sound rough for some people. It might sound like, well, you're giving them an automatic hit, but you got to think they've gone 3 rounds and done absolutely nothing. That is at least half the combat, if not most of the combat, for most typical combats. And that player is feeling devastated. That player feels useless and worthless, and they feel unhappy for the most part. Now, if there's good comedy and some other things going on, that's fine. But if it happens to be one of those sessions that's a slog, and Matt Colvin does a great talk on slogs, sometimes they just happen and you just kind of push through them and people have to understand that. If it's a slog and that happens, it is the worst. So this is a little bit of a benefit that you can give to those players as they sit there and are watching their friends be hurt around them or being hurt themselves, being able to do absolutely nothing to help them It's ridiculous. So that is a rule we put into place. People, I've had a couple people kind of like looking at weird and side-eyed because it's like, well, you're giving automatic successes or you're giving too many benefits. It's like, you got to think about being in that thing. Well, that's D&D. Well, that's not my D&D. I don't want to play like that. I don't want my players to have to play like that. I never would want to go into a game without this, even though it's...
I think Secondhand Samurai just solved a problem we were talking about the other day. Player noise is character noise. Keeps you on task. Keeps you from riffing too much.
So, player noise is character noise. Yes, that is a house rule I've used before. I am very... I have used that in serious roleplay situations. Last night, I almost implemented it with... they were dealing with a Sphinx last night, and the Sphinx wasn't letting them discuss because the Sphinx was being held captive by some people, and basically thought anybody who would be able to answer the riddles would have been sent by his keepers, so they would know the answers. So why would you need to discuss it? You should know the answers. If you don't, then it's my job to stop you from coming in. And so when he asked the riddle and somebody said to another player the answer, I said wrong, and we moved on. And they're like, I was just talking to him. Like, if you should already know the answer. There's no reason you should need to speak to everyone. And I let them talk a little bit out of character, but it almost got to the point where I was like, okay, anything you guys say is going to be considered in character from here on out. Basically, the idea is if you say anything, you're saying it in character. And I have done that in certain situations.
Implementing that when you need to, implementing it in when you say, okay, I mean, it actually would probably be very useful to expressly say that. Say, from now on, for this scene, anything you say is going to be in character. And that actually is a good way of maybe indicating to your players that, you know, this is meant to be a tenser situation, or we want to get through this scene and I need you guys to focus. So it's anything you say is going to be in character here because I really want to focus on this moment. I want to let this moment really ring out in the way that I need it to.
Right. Now, I have played in games where that has been the rule across the board, that unless you were talking to the DM about rules or telling what you're going to do, anything and everything you say is in character. That, to me, was a little too much. I didn't like the idea that I could never make a reference, especially when we're sitting in a bar and drinking and not really doing anything. It's a little bit, you know, we're sitting there to have fun. And again, it should have been something that was brought up in session 0, not when I joined the game. Well, I joined the game a little late, but so maybe they did talk about it. I don't know. Back then, we didn't really talk about session 0 a lot. But I should have had a mini session 0 with the DM before that. They should have told me that was going to be a thing. I show up to play at the table, and that's just the way it is. I already invested in the game, so I ended up playing several sessions. So we like to do something kind of in between. I think my players, for the most part, especially in Countless Heroes, actually everything, but Countless Heroes is a good example because that's when we play a lot. They understand the moments when we want to be in character and we want to be silent for the most part. There are some exceptions to that, and we've run into some issues. Every table's going to have their issues, and we'll talk about some of the issues that we've run into and some of the issues that we have at other tables in the future. That'll be definitely something we go into a lot. We have about 7 minutes left.
Wow, time flew by.
What do we want to do? Yeah.
What were our next 2 subjects?
Crossing the stream, the 2 that you didn't care about.
Well, not that I didn't care about them. I felt
like I didn't want to do them.
I felt unprepared to discuss them to the point where I wanted to discuss them.
That's how I felt this entire time.
Oh, well, voice your preferences.
No, I do good under pressure.
Okay. Thank you for that being where you think of that riff. All right, well, okay, so we have these 2 that we'll probably talk about a little bit more next week.
Well, real quick, what do they mean, though, so people don't go crazy? Crossing
the Streams, specifically, we were looking for pithy titles for things. Hopefully they'll start making sense. But basically we want to talk about the difference or the additional things you have to think about when you start playing games on stream. So on Twitch, on YouTube, and you start, and I would even venture to say that streaming is not the only limitation here. When you start videotaping your games or start recording your games.
When you start playing for an audience.
Yeah. What do you have to start thinking about? Whether that's technical or logistical or like group dynamic stuff. What do you have to start considering when you suddenly have an audience watching you?
Because it's like the technical aspect is a big one. My audio setup and my setup here is extremely complicated. I needed an upgraded computer to handle it all. I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different programs to get all of this to work right together. 4 of those are just audio programs because I wanted to be able to route my audio through Reaper so I could do voice modulation and things on the fly. And then actually I don't have Firefox open, so that's one more. And then technically I have Discord, and I have a Chrome, 2 different versions of Discord running, all to make this work. So that's that. So we do all sorts of things there. That's what it takes to do that.
Yeah, and so we'll be talking about resources and tools that you can use when you want to stream, what our setup is like and why we like it. We can't guarantee that a lot of this stuff is going to be free, partly because we were trying to put our best foot forward when we started streaming. So we did put a little bit of money into the infrastructure of how we stream. But for the most part, I'm of the opinion that a lot of the basics are still pretty affordable if you are ready to start putting a little bit of money into making your stream look good, or at least semi-professional and coherent.
Yeah, for us, part of the requirements of being a part of Countless Heroes, because I put a call out, I had probably 25 people that were interested, and we ended up getting down to about 15, 16. One of the big things was you had to have a good camera, which we have a camera that we'll recommend it. I don't know, Logitech C920.
Logitech C290.
C290. Is it
C920?
C920. Because the C920.
I had the numbers, just not the order.
Yeah, just not the right order. And then a microphone. It had to be a Blue Yeti. That was my requirement.
At minimum, it had to be at minimum a Blue Yeti.
Yeah,
like I'm not using one right now, but
yeah, neither am I. But if you weren't going to make that minimum of a commitment, and yes, it's a monetary commitment, we had a certain level of professionalism because we knew that this was going to be a stream that represented our network. It had to be a certain level of quality. I wanted to have that.
And to be fair, right? And to be fair, the reason that we have that standard is partly because we're doing other things, not just streaming the game. We justified the purchasing because we also had other things that we can utilize that equipment for. It's not just, I've never done anything AV in my life, I've never done anything streaming in my life, and I want to start now, so I'm going to shell out a ton of money. I am a big proponent of starting small with smaller equipment if you just need to learn how to do the thing you're trying to do. This is the stuff when you want to then go to the next level, or you want to then elevate your quality a bit more, because you're not just learning now. Now you're trying to actually put out content.
And we'll talk about our equipment. I know people like to know what people are running, and we'll probably put something down the doobly-doo that lists our equipment or something, or it'll be a command that we put up or something.
Sure.
And we'll talk about the equipment that we're running at a later point. But
I'll take pictures.
Yeah. But so for me, I am the type of person that if I do anything, I want to do it all the way. So I did a lot of research, hundreds of hours. I built a very nice computer. I got a very nice audio setup. I got a very, very nice microphone. I run 4 monitors. So there's a lot going on. So I've got Twitch up there. I've got Streamlabs here.
I like the fact that we're kind of working in a different level from each other, because I only have one monitor and it works pretty well for me. I'm willing to deal with just dragging things to different sides of my screen and working.
But you're also not running the stream.
I'm not running the game. If I was running the game or the stream, yeah. So I understand your reason.
There's who I talk to. There's me watching the stream to make sure it's not broken. This is where I do all the stuff in the stream that needs to happen, and this is where all my references come from. So my Twitch is on, or my Discord's on here, my chat bot's on here, my Reaper's on here, and I have to have all of that visual because all at different times, different things can be happening with it. So. And even then, I don't have enough room because I still have to have Sparkle Cam and I still have to have everything.
You'll find out about all this stuff. We'll
talk about all this another time. So anyway,
all the programs,
and then All Systems Go is us talking about different systems. We're not just here to talk about
systems,
D&D,
different RPG
systems. We're not here to just talk about D&D. We'll be talking about a lot of different stuff, and I don't think we're going to highlight a different system in those moments. We're going to talk about different systems all the time. We talk about World of Darkness earlier today, and we'll definitely talk about one of our favorite micro systems that we use parts of, which is Powered by the Apocalypse, which we have pulled the dice from to use on several occasions, their little dice system. Yes, 3 monitors minimum, and actually adding the 4th as a 50-inch television was really nice. So, although it's freaky having, when there's only one person on the screen, they're bigger than they would be in real life.
I'm
so
like Zordon in Power Rangers,
or the big giant head, or it's ridiculous. All right, so that's the end of that for us. I think we're done for the day.
I have 2 things that I think we should talk about really quick before we go, though, which we probably should have factored into earlier in the stream. Well, one of the things we'll also be talking about is what we're calling it, DM Toolbox, RPG Toolbox, one of those, where we'll talk about resources and stuff that you can use to run your games. We'll have an actual segment for that.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, today is the 14th. Tomorrow is the 15th, and the 15th is the last day for Nerds Giving, which is our charity fundraiser that we've been running since the 1st of November. We'll be doing it every year, ideally. This year was an amazing first outing so far. We have brought in a bunch of people from inside and outside the Nerdsmith network to get together and raise some money for the Trevor Project, which provides crisis intervention and suicide prevention services for LGBTQ youth in crisis. And we are a big supporter of their services and the kind of stuff that they do. We had a goal when we started on the 1st of $500. We very quickly blew past that within the first day because people were already on board before we even started. And we have been incrementally bringing up our goal every few days or so. And we are currently at a $3,000 goal because I believe we have earned a little over $2,800 at this point. And that is amazing. And everybody who's watching, I am pretty sure just about everybody who's watching has donated or at least participated in some of the activities we've been doing this week and last week. And we're hoping to maybe get over the hump and push to the last goal before we're wrapped. If you're watching this after Nerds Giving, it's not November. Those links are always still open. We will always take donations for Trevor Project. That is an ongoing fundraiser that we want to continue doing. We just do a bunch of fun stuff for the first 2 weeks of November to try to highlight it. But you can go to nerdsmith.org/Trevor, and you'll find all the people that are participating and where you can donate and all that cool stuff. But I'm so excited that we made as much as we raised as much as we raised, because the people that are fans of us and the people that are in our community are amazing. And we knew we could rely on good-hearted nerds to help do something a little good this year.
Yeah, and this time of the year, I mean, we chose this time of the year specifically because we wanted to kind of get at the start of the giving season. You know, this is about the time when people start thinking about giving and charities and things. And we're running for 2 weeks because we wanted to make sure that every show on our network, on the Nerdsmith Network, had an opportunity to participate, no matter when they released. We didn't want them to force them to release special episodes just for that time. So, also, in addition to that, any donors are entered for contests. So if you throw bits at us or you throw any donation during the drive in November of 2018, between the 1st and the 18th, because this is going to live on
15th.
forever. 15th. That's what I said, the 15th.
You said 18th. It's okay. It's all good.
All right. Anyway, you'll be entered for a contest for the daily donation, and at the end, Toonhouse Studios and Cantrip Candles gave us some Toonhound Studios and Cantrip Candles gave us some amazing prizes. We split up into 2 Dungeon Master prize packs, which include the Toonhound Studios Dungeon Master screen, an adventure journal, a bunch of stickers, a Cantrip candle, all sorts of amazing stuff. So we're going to be giving away 2 of those to donors from any day after this is all over. And we may have a few other things floating around there. We might be giving a few other things away, but we've got little prizes all the way that we'll be giving out, little of our Nerdsmith loot crate type items that we'll be throwing out there, and we'll be sending out some pins and some other stuff. So we got a lot of craziness going on for that. In addition to that, anybody who what was I going to say? There's one other thing I was going to say. Thank you. I don't remember what the other thing I was going to say was.
I don't know either.
And
at some point we'll talk about World Anvil, but we'll do it another time.
Well, we have to find out if they want to sponsor this stream as well. That's the question.
But I think they are completely valid for the RPG tools.
Oh, absolutely. They'll be our first RPG
we'll at least
tools,
sneak them in.
And what we might even do, this would be a great show for us to do a stream of us working in World Anvil on another day. Maybe not during this day, during this time slot. But we could do, instead of like some Sunday, instead of spending an hour doing a thing, we might spend an hour inside of that.
That would be neat.
And using that. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Tell your friends about it. Let them know that that we're here and that we're starting this cool thing. And hopefully by next week we'll start getting a couple of our little short videos out.
Yep.
We got to get some marketing and branding stuff done and get some templates made. But once we're done with that, we're going to start churning out some videos as well, where we'll kind of summarize a lot of what we talked about here today in those videos. We'll get
a little more in depth in some of these topics sometimes, so that we get a lot of the depth of what we want in those videos too. So we'll right now was an overview, let you know what we're going to talk about, and then next week we'll start more talking about what we're going to talk about.
Yes. So next week, each one of these, or whatever we end up being, we're going to do different stuff every week, but we'll have different group of segments, and then we'll actually have specific topics to talk about, as opposed to just talking about what we're going to talk about. Because this is literally what we do. We sit here, we come up with an idea, and we brainstorm. This is a conversation that we would have had off screen. We just decided to have it on stream as our kind of pilot episode to give an idea of what this might look like. So, and all this is new to us. So we're willing to change things up. If you have ideas for different segments, or
tell us what you liked, what you didn't.
Let us know what you want to do. If you have any item suggestions or anything, of course, send those over to drpg@nerdsmith.org, or you can go and find us on Twitter at Discover RPG Show.
Yep.
Thank you guys very, very much. We really appreciate all of you, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Next week.
Or tonight, if you come and see Countless Heroes at 7 p.m.
That's true. Sure. And I'm sure we'll come up with some sort of pithy sign-off when by the time next week rolls around.
And then we'll insert pithy sign-off here. All right, guys. Thank you again so much. Have a wonderful day.
Yep, bye.
And thank you for the bitch of the follow or whatever just happened.
Yay.
What just happened? Thank you. I don't know. Must have been a follow. Thank you for the follow. Bye.